Okay, everybody, so this is your main lecture for this particular unit in which we're going to start working on the narrative essay. And the narrative essay, as you can see from the slideshow I'm about to present, um, is a type of writing that we're going to do in our course, and it's always how I start out English 110. And I started out this way partly because I think narrative is the most fun. So this slideshow is going to be about how to do a narrative, and specifically it's going to be me taking an example and showing it to you so that you can kind of understand what a narrative is and why we do it. So the story that we're going to look at is by a comedian whose name is Kumail Nanjiani. His name is right here. And the story is called Fisticuffs, and it's told at a comedy show called This Is Not Happening, where comedians get up and tell stories about things that happen to them. So I thought it might be perfect for this particular assignment because it's relatively casual, it's funny, and I think that it's relatable. And this is the link to it, but it's also posted in your Moodle. So before we get into Kumail's story, I want to take a look a little bit at what narrative is. And these are the pages in your textbook where you can find it, pages 180 to 188. And this information I have here is taken almost directly from those pages. So I've summarized some of the things that they're talking about on the pages in the textbook. There are a few different things that a narrative does. Mainly, probably you know the word narrative as meaning story, and that's exactly what it is. It tells a story that makes a specific point about life. So a narrative is not about you telling everything that's ever happened to you, right? It's about you focusing in on a specific event that happened to you for this particular assignment and using that as an illustration of a particular point that you'd like to make. So just like a 5-paragraph essay has a thesis, a narrative has a point that it wants to make. It has a thesis too, but often the point is a little more subtle than the ones in, like, for example, a persuasive essay. In your diagnostic essay, I had you make your thesis relatively obvious, where you were like, this is what I'm going to say. And in a narrative, it's going to ruin the story if you say, what I am going to tell you is, and so you're not going to be that obvious. But you still have a guiding idea, a point that you want to get across. And this may seem a little bit weird, but in reality, you do this all the time in real life. One real life example is a job interview. So you go to a job interview and you're applying for a sales position. And the boss says to you, tell me about a time when you made a big sale. What you're going to do is tell him a story that proves that you're a good salesman. When you were a teenager and you took your parents' car out, say, and something happened to the car, and you come home and your mom says, what happened to the car? You use narrative to explain to her what happened. Well, you see, Mom, what happened was, or for example, say you have a really strong opinion on a political issue, and you happen to have that opinion because of something that happened in your own life, then you might tell a story about that experience. I imagine that many people now, when they talk about police violence, the issue of police violence, might tell the story of what Baton Rouge was like after Alton Sterling's death due to police violence. So that's an example of a way that you could use narrative to say, I feel this way about this issue. Here's an example of a story that tells you why I feel that way, or tells you how I came to view the world that way. So it also shows how you view the world. It shows how you view life. It's a lot more effective to tell a story about how much family means to you than it is to just say to somebody, family's a big deal to me, right? Family can be a big deal to lots of people, but if you tell a story about a time when you went above and beyond to take care of your family, then that story proves that thesis, right? Gives that example. And it also shows the experiences that have formed you, and that's one of the examples we're going to look at today in Nanjiani's piece, is of experiences that formed him. On page 180 in your reflections textbook, this is just some examples of things that a narrative does. It's told from a particular point of view, so you're the one in our example telling the story, so it's going to be about how you saw that particular event. Think about if you got in a fight with your friend, and you came home and you told your boyfriend about it, right? And you said, oh my God, this is what happened. She said this and I did this. She's going to go home and tell that story a totally different way, right? Because each of you is going to be in the right in your version of the story. So that's point of view. You're the person who saw it that way, so we're seeing the experiences through your eyes, right? Through your lens. I already said it wants to convey a specific point or idea throughout the story. There's also conflict. Conflict means something has to happen, right? You can't just list for me a whole bunch of things that happened to you today. That's not a narrative. You can't say, I woke up, I went to the store, I came home, I ate dinner, I went to bed. It's not a story, it's not interesting, it has no structure, it has no point, right? Conflict. And conflict means two forces going against each other. Sometimes that's a physical conflict, right? If you watch an action movie, there's a physical conflict that happens. The good guy battles the bad guy. But in some stories, the conflict is more subtle than that. Sometimes a story might be about somebody overcoming a fear, and in that case, the conflict is between the person and the fear. So conflict essentially just means there has to be something going on. There have to be forces at work, things working against each other or functioning to make something happen. And we're going to study conflict a little more as we go. That'll start to make more sense. Events in the story have to occur in a logical order. Like I said, it's not going to be just a list of things you did, right? You have an event that occurs within a specific time frame, and the things that happen in that event occur in a particular order. Often you're going to use dialogue, so you're going to talk about the real things that people said during that event. He said this, she replied this. So you're going to use direct quotations. That's something that happens a lot in narrative. And I liked these two quotes from McWhorter a lot, so I took them directly from page 180. It uses vivid details that advance the story and the main point. As we go along in learning about narrative, I'm going to talk to you a lot about detail. I'm going to say there's a difference between saying to me, a man walked down the street, versus saying, I stood at the edge of the road and watched as a short, fat man trudged his way towards me, dragging his holy tennis shoes along the ground, right? Those are two very different things. In one of them, there's a man, he's walking. I don't really get a sense of what's actually going on there. I don't know what the man looks like. I don't know what he's doing. But in that second example, I gave you more detail to try and really get you to see what I was seeing. And that's also in McWhorter's quote here, it conveys action and detail. So the goal of your story is to show people what happened. And in showing them what happened, you're going to try to convey a particular point or a particular idea. And I took a picture here of one of the pages in McWhorter's Graphic 10.1. And this talks about some of what a narrative essay might look like. So this is something we're going to return to over and over again. So it still has this basic 5-paragraph structure. It has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. But here they break down for you the ways that that's going to work a little bit differently in a narrative than it might. But if you're attached to that 5-paragraph structure, here's a way that you can deploy that in a narrative. And we'll return to this graphic over and over again. So I really liked it. I thought I would throw it up there for you guys to see. So what I did for this particular lecture is I took Nanjiani's video and I took some quotes from the textbook about narrative, and we're going to use McWhorter's breakdown of what a narrative does, and we're going to apply it to Kumail Nanjiani's story. So at this point, if you haven't already, I'd like for you to pause and watch his video. It's about 12 minutes long. Watch the video, get a sense of where you think the parts are in the story, and then come back and look at the rest of this lecture and see how things play out. So I'm actually going to stop the video here and give you time to go and do that, and then I'm going to upload a second video where we break down the story. So you might want to flip through your textbook or flip through the slideshow that I've uploaded as a PDF and see what points I'm going to make, and then go and watch Kumail's video before you listen through to the rest of the lecture. And when you watch it, I want you to think about where's his introduction? What kind of things does he do to set you up, to show you what the story is going to be about, and what's the point he's trying to prove, right? As you listen, think about what's his central thesis, what's the point he wants to get across, and then also pay attention to where details arise in the story. So where is he not just saying the man walked down the street? Where is he giving you descriptions? So think about those things as you watch it, and then come back and view the second half of the